what he did was, I think one good experiment was that he went to this biotech company in Boston called Promega, where he could naturally find a stressed out crowd. I have been in a biotech company. I know that you get stressed out. And so they were stressed out, and he asked them all to come in and answer the question, how happy are you? So he recorded the happiness levels. He did a measurement on everyone with EEG. And then he divided them into two groups. So one group had time off, simply, for a number of weeks. And the other group had, I think it was a 12-week course of mindfulness meditation, which is a sort of, I guess, a westernized version of some Buddhist techniques. And so after the 12 weeks, he called everyone in again, and he did the same measurements. And it seemed that nothing had changed in the group that had more free time. They felt just as stressed. They felt the same happiness level. Their brain activity was the same. Their stress hormones were the same. But when you did the measurements on the other group that had been in the mindfulness course, they said that they felt, less stress. They felt happier, and their brain activity was actually changed, and their stress hormones had gone down. And this kind of stuff has been repeated in other research groups. In Norway, for example, there's a lot of research done on it. And it seems that meditation, which is basically a cognitive technique, it's a technique where you either concentrate on something for a long time or you try to empty your mind. It does something to your brain activity. So you change your brain from the inside. And that works on the immune system, and it works on your stress system, your hormone production, and so on. So there's definitely something going on. And of course, this kind of research tells you something about, or it gives you a different sense of self, I think. The revolutionary thing, again, is that you see that there is no sort of core self. We used to think that we have this core inside, that my self is, this thing. There is a true self inside all of us. But what this shows is really that the self is a very fluid thing. That, you can change the self by changing the brain, of course, because you are a bag of neurons. And I think that I see that as a very liberating thought, a very liberating thing or way of seeing yourself. If you don't like the self you have, you can change your chemistry, and then you actually become a different self. And I think if anyone in here has ever been depressed and been on antidepressant drugs, you feel it very, very strongly. If these drugs work, you become a different self. And then you can have the discussion, but is that a medicated self? Is that the real self? And if you look at yourself as a physiological system, there is no real self. There is the self that you choose. The self is basically brain states of cellular activity, chemical activity. So there is no essential self. And I think it's put very well, or the essence of this revolution is put very well by a Danish children's author named Thomas Winding, who actually said once that the greatest discovery a person can make is that you don't have to be who you are. And I think that puts it very, very well. You don't have to be who you are. You can choose within limits, of course. We can't just change to anything, but we can change ourselves a lot. And the more we look at the brain, the more research is done, the more obvious it is that it's a very, very plastic system. And then again, I think what we're going to see in the future, when this thinking of ourselves as a bag of neurons seeps into the culture, is that it will be it will feel very, very natural to manipulate yourself. With cognitive techniques, such as meditation or mindfulness, or with drugs, basically. I think we're going to see, if we come back in 10 years, most people in a congregation like this would be on some kind of enhancing drug. Not a drug that will treat a disease, but something that changes the self. And we already see that kind of movement in more and more people taking a drug like Ritalin, not to treat a disease, but to concentrate better, for example. If you go to American college campuses, you can see up to 30% somewhere of students that will take Ritalin every time they take an exam or every time they have to turn in a big assignment. And they see it as totally natural. Of course they want to concentrate better to do the job better. And you also see a movement in the scientific and ethical community, because last year there was this big commentary in Nature where a bunch of scientists and a bunch of ethicists had gone together and actually wanted to say to politicians and to society, maybe we should start discussing these performance-enhancing drugs or brain-enhancing drugs in a sort of a proactive way. Why not figure out how we can use these drugs for society's benefit? And that is the first time I have seen ethicists come out with a point like that. Usually they will say, it is completely wrong to treat people who are not sick. Also, you see the same movement, of course, in the pharmaceutical industry. If you ask them, they will say, yes, we are looking at the market of, well people that can be enhanced. And, in 20 years, we will probably be able to actually produce drugs and get them approved for enhancing. And I think that is a thought that will be completely natural in 10 and certainly in 20 years. And apart from that, this is more on a sort of a philosophical level, an individual realization level. But then on a societal level, of course, you will see knowledge about the brain and brain-related technologies seep into everything. We're going to talk about neuromarketing, and there is neuromanagement out there. There is neuroeducation. So neuro is becoming that sort of prefix for everything right at this moment. And of course we have to be careful, because there's also, because of this revolution and because of all this hype, there is a sort of a neuro charm that, when they come out with new studies showing that whatever it is in neuro leadership or neuromarketing, we should be very careful to look at it and you see, can it be replicated? Is it good science before we apply it? But I think the discussion will have to be started among people and hopefully among politicians. How are we going to use this new knowledge for individual benefit and for the benefit of society? And with that, I will say thank you very much for listening. And
so far, there have been 4 great scientific revolutions that have changed our view of mankind. First, Copernicus removed us from the center of the universe, and mankind feared and debated the consequences. Second, Darwin demoted us from divine exception to evolutionary beast, and mankind feared and debated the consequences. Third, Freud exposed free will and replaced it with primitive instinct, and mankind feared and debated the consequences. Fourth, Francis Crick discovered DNA and redefined life itself, and mankind feared and debated the consequences. And now we're at the dawn of the 5th. Brain science is reducing the mind, emotion, consciousness, memory, spirituality, all our experiences to neurons giving each other small electric shocks. Brain technology will change computers, cell phones, lie detectors, advertising, job applications, medicine, video games, economic forecasting, meditation, sex, stock trading, self-help, spirituality, religion. Our world. Is this depressing, liberating, threatening, inspiring? Will body free become the new hands free? Will the next generation of billionaires be brain scientists? Will it take 5, 10, 20 or 200 years? Or is it all? It is time to start the debate.